Good morning and welcome back to The Breakfast Show. It is Breakfast with Sunrise.
That's right. Okay, moving on then to our main story for this morning, and a main story for many in the Asian community especially. Today marks the 30th anniversary of the death of Blair Peach, who was killed during a demonstration against the National Front. Now that was on the 23rd of April in 1979, and over 3,000 protesters gathered against the National Front on that day. Let's just first of all take a look at a report which looks at what happened 30 years ago.
Years ago today, the people of Southall came out to show their opposition to the National Front, who were holding a meeting here at the Town Hall. The National Front had said they wanted to bulldoze Southall and erect an English hamlet in its place. Local Southall people marched along here with anti-racist campaigners from across the world.
3 years before this incident, Gurdeep Chagga had been stabbed by these savages, and our brothers were being killed. And there was absolutely no way there was going to be a repeat of this.
One of those campaigners was a young teacher from New Zealand called Blair Peach. Later, in clashes with the police, Blair Peach was hit on the head and died from his injuries.
There was police sort of jostling the youth, and that of course arouses the anger. And then when anybody was angry, that would be used as a pretext to arrest them. So that erupted in anger and fighting, which resulted in 450 youth being arrested.
Here on Beechcroft Avenue in Southall, Blair Peach and his friends tried to escape from the violence that was breaking out at the demonstration. But down here, they came into contact with the police. And during the ensuing violence, Blair was hit on the head with a kosh, collapsed, was taken into one of these houses by a local family, and later died in hospital.
We felt so sorry that this New Zealand teacher was fighting for our cause, was joined in forces with us. It was such a sad, sad moment, but it was a glimmer of hope. The glimmer of hope was that he was a non-Asian that was standing with us.
No one has ever been held responsible for the murder of Blair Peach. An inquest into his death returned a verdict of misadventure due to insufficient evidence. At the inquest, it emerged unauthorised weapons, including sledgehammers and lead-filled koshes, were found in the lockers of police who attended the demo. Despite this, a police inquiry was closed without anyone having charges brought against them. 30 years on, campaigners are still calling for a new investigation into his killing. This is Siobhan Warnell for Sunrise Television.
There you go then, that was Siobhan Warnell reporting there with details of exactly what happened around 30 years ago in Southall itself. Right, joining us this morning to talk more about that, and somebody you saw there in the report is Mr Salvinder Dhillon, anti-racist campaigner and leading activist for IWAGP, which is the Indian Workers Association of Great Britain. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, it's great to have you here on board to share your experience, of course. Now, you were there when all of this took place 30 years ago.
Yes, that's right.
Now, you've been brought up in Southall, am I right?
Yeah, ever since from 1960 onwards.
Absolutely, and you've been fighting against racism and campaigning for, obviously, in defence of community workers.
Yeah, from my student days of 1970 onwards.
That's right. Okay.
So you've seen how things have changed over the years and so forth as well?
Oh yes, even what led to this incident, there was a whole years when the National Front was gradually being propped up and coming limelight.
This was, would you say, racism at its peak in Southall especially?
That day was a historic day, a culminating point when the people of Southall shouldered a big responsibility, turning you could say, putting a halt to the rise of racism and rise of the National Front, and making it possible for our community to live with respect and dignity here.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the run-up to this event. So, you know, what was it that actually, who got everybody together? What was the strength behind it?
Yeah, as was mentioned in that clip before, that there were actual racist murders, like Gurdeep Chagga was murdered.
Sure.
The whole environment was quite horrific. I remember an incident when a student was coming from Acton, pounced by the thugs, the racist thugs, and they scratched the word NF on his chest.
Oh, right.
And then there were instances on the Broadway a number of times. Again, racist thugs inspired by the poison of the National Front came in vans, and there were at least 3 incidents I know of when they threw acid at people walking on the Broadway.
Wow.
And of course the people of Southall, they weren't going to take it no more.
No, of course, over the years the poison has been, there were attacks not in Southall, in Slough, houses were being attacked, windows being broken. So people began to feel insecure. Do we have a future in this country?
Yeah,
and they looked at Southall to make sure that if we could stop this menace in Southall, then there is such a possibility of a future. And that's a big responsibility we had on our shoulders that day.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. But am I right in saying that this was this took place at the time when the National Front were due to hold a meeting in London?
It was election times.
That's right.
And during election times, these organisations get a lot of coverage. And they had said they're going to hold a meeting in Southall in the town hall. One day before that, we went on a march to Ealing, requesting the council and the government not to allow them to hold that meeting because they had no base, they had no support here. So the anger of our community is that why is the National Front being allowed to hold a meeting?
So they had permission to go ahead with that?
They had permission to hold a meeting, and the community is angry that they got no support base, and it was only basically to trigger off conflict.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. So everything said and done, I mean obviously some blood, a lot of tears, a lot of sweat went into that whole protest, and of course a long time before and after as well.
Yeah.
But once that had taken place on the 23rd, was it 23rd of April?
23rd of April.
What do you feel was achieved?
I think that day was a victory for our community because, as I mentioned, I remember just a week before when we distributed leaflets, a family from Crawley came and they said, what you're doing is great. If you can succeed next week in halting them, then us living in where the communities are not so concentrated and they're easy prey and victims, then there's a future. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us. So it's a very important that this work is carried on.
And of course, it was unity because it was of all religions and everybody from the community
that was
got
very
together.
Inspiring. I'd say I could say I salute all the efforts of the various communities. I remember coachloads coming from as far as Scotland and other parts of the UK. Although Southall was cordoned off, there was about, I believe there were about 5,500 police. And Southall was cordoned off and they wouldn't allow support to come in. But I saw a coachload of Afro-Caribbeans reaching Glassy Junction. And as soon as they said, man, we're here, man, we're here, and you can see how elated and proud we felt.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, the police just pounced on them, took every single one of them and arrested them.
Right.
It was like shove, push, make them angry, and then use as a pretext to arrest.
Bungle them up.
And so there were British working people, there were Afro-Caribbeans, and can you imagine the unity that people actually didn't go to work that day? There were people from Springfield Bakery. Southall used to have quite a big manufacturing base. A lot of people didn't go to work, students didn't go to school, and that, I've never seen such an atmosphere of unity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I would just like to thank you from my generation as well, for all those individuals that did take that stand, because what you guys did at that time has really made what we are today as well. So genuinely, thank you very much.
Well, now it's for the young generation. The whole purpose of us holding a meeting this Sunday at the Dominion Centre from the IWAG, United Against Fascism and Trade Unions, is to remember that day and learn the lessons. That whilst it's true that we put a halt to racism, not just we, but everybody as a whole community, it paved the possibility of us to live with free of racism, respect, dignity, although racism still continued, but not to the level we faced.
Sure.
And with the recession coming, I hope it doesn't happen again.
No, that's right. Just very quickly, how far do you think we've come since then, as far as racism is concerned?
There's been a lot of struggles that were the cause of the decline of racism, but with the current crisis and economic climate, they use racism as a card to divide people, divert them, because people are going to ask for jobs, people are going to ask for better health, better education. It's much easier to turn the loggerheads against each other and use the BNP now as a vehicle, and it's already happening.
As we know, there's so
and
many more foreigners coming into the country, and that same debate is happening again.
Debate is happening, the same ominous signals are there. Now the challenge is fall upon the new generation. And just to mention how the youth played a big role is that, you know, they talk about gangs and the youth being visionless. That was a day when the youth of Southall even the different, it may have belonged to different gangs, realized the role they had to play, put their animosities aside, and really put a heroic fight against racism that day, and made it a future possible for us in this country.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Dillon, thank you so much for coming in.
Well,
and
thank you
talking
very
to
much
us
for the
about it.
opportunity.
Thank you.
And yes, good luck with the meeting tomorrow, and hope it all goes well. Thank you.
Yep, and we call everybody to join us on Sunday at the Beginning Centre at 2 o'clock.
Definitely will be there.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.